What's up, wrestling card collectors? Welcome to another edition of WTCtv. And as always, every month, we sit back with the official price guide for wrestling cards. Mr. Paul Anand, how are you, sir?
I'm good, man. How are you?
You know, I'm feeling better than expected, actually, after all this recent travel I've had. So I know we're a little tardy for the month of April, but we're going to get it all covered here, folks.
Yeah, we got a lot to cover.
Because there is a lot to cover here. And
yeah, so can I quote a line from Cody Rhodes?
You can quote a line whatever you want, man.
So what do you all want to talk about? But you know what? Before we jump into Prizm, and we're going to dissect every which way and look at the ups and downs sideways. And before we do that, tell us about your trip, freshly back from the UK for the love of wrestling. And I know you're tired, and we just chatted about it before we started, but just a quickie for the audience.
Well, it was a quick little
how was things across the pond?
Across the pond. It was nice to actually meet up with some people over in Liverpool at the For the Love of Wrestling event. Got to meet the host of Tweet Wrestling, a couple other gentlemen as well. So, you know, the first two guys who came up and approached me and said, "Hey, Tony from WTC," I gave them exclusive, the T-shirt cards. I have a couple extra ones, and I gave them a Kevin Nash promo card as well. So
how cool is that? You get to the British Isles and people are coming up to you saying, "Hey, Tony Vella."
Yeah, so it was fun. Like,
never thought you'd see the day, huh?
I never thought I'd see the day, and it was fun. The first thing I did when I got there in the mornings, I went and checked all the vendors out, and of course, I found a guy who had a ton of trading cards. But my dumbass didn't go out there and convert any money into pounds, so I didn't have any actual cash to. Well, in the UK it's pounds, and then you go over into Ireland, they take euros. They accept both in the UK, of course, but I learned very quickly that the UK and Ireland like to be separate. You don't lump them together, and it was a good time. So I know that Tweet Wrestling guy, he scored some great stuff, got some of that New Zealand cards from that 89, 90 sets, and then he got a lot of great stuff. And there was more stuff. The guy was fairly priced on a lot of things too, even some Kurt Angle stuff I wish I would have bought, but I didn't. But wasn't really there to shop. I was there to work. We did London, took a day off, did Glasgow to Liverpool to Belfast to Dublin to Cork back to London, and then London back home for about a half a day or so, then packed it up, went to Alaska.
Quite the whirlwind. Now, I remember when you were over there, you shared a picture of you and Kurt, and you guys were at a castle, and it was just the two of you guys on the back of the stone wall.
Yeah.
And I remember what was going on, at least from the playoffs, and this came, and I'm like, I looked at that and I showed it to Susan. I said, "Hey, check this out." She puts on her glasses. She goes, "Hey, that's Tony and Kurt Angle." Man, how cool is that? I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I think it's in Scotland."
It was actually it was in Glasgow. It was at a castle that particular.
She loves that shit, castles, and she's a big fan of Zoolander. So when I showed her that, it was half. What's the castle? And wait a minute, that's Kurt Angle. And I said, yeah. I said, they're hanging together, for the entire thing. So I'm thinking, my buddy's hanging out with Kurt Angle at a castle. That's cool.
How often you get to hang out with an Olympic gold medalist? I mean, a lot of guys like,
not very often.
As a WWE Hall of Famer, and that's great and good like that. But Kurt's been so good to my family, and I always look at it like, yeah, the WWE stuff is great stuff, but he's an Olympic gold medalist. That's even rarer,
Yeah,
so it's just we had a lot of fun out there, and that was the only day we got to go do anything. And so we went.
Yeah, it seems like it.
We got to go check out this castle built in 1372, so it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
But
well, congratulations, all of that. Seems like it was a success based on the pictures I saw for the Love of the Wrestling. The cues or the lines for Kurt were incredible.
Good. So that's what we got. That's what I learned about calling things. I don't call them lines anymore. I call them cues now. I like that.
Well, I was born in the UK. I'm from London, so I still sometimes call them flats and stuff. And anyways.
But it was a fun tour. Big props to Andy Cleek and Monopoly Events for the Love of Wrestling for putting on for the big day, that one day show. And then another big shout out to Kenny McIntosh and his entire crew for Inside the Ropes, who put on such an amazing tour and took amazing care of Kurt, and which I was expected, but myself as well. Like, they were not kidding, man. Just bring your clothes. We got everything else taken care of for you. And they really were. That was the case. I mean, every town I went into, there was a monster waiting for me in a refrigerator.
Really?
It was awesome. So
well, congratulations, man. It seemed like it was a success, and I'm sure you'll be looking forward to doing it again. Yeah,
we're already talking about doing something for late this year, early 2023, possibly, with a couple other talents I work with. So it's fun. But now we're back. I feel like I missed so much stuff while I was gone. And
you were in touch, and I mean, well, it's not like anything was going on over here with wrestling cards or anything.
Oh, come on. I mean,
it's not like every day you weren't missing something.
it seemed like every day I would wake up and I get a either a text message or a DM from somebody talking about something going on in the crazy world of wrestling cards, as if
Yeah.
it wasn't crazy enough, because
Yeah.
we've gone through so much in this hobby, for it to be like shaking so much. It's like we're having one quake after another kind of thing, and all these
Yeah.
aftershocks. We've never
Yeah,
had this kind
it's
of
been
before.
it's been a significant month. There's no question about that. And you know what? Before we do the deep dive into Prism, because the bulk of the show is going to
Yeah,
be talking about Prism, and we're going to be talking about the high end, the low end.
sure.
We're going to be talking about the divide amongst collectors. We're going to
Yep.
try and put a bow on it and say, okay, we've had a month now. Like last time we were together, the product had just coming out, so we didn't know what the effect was going to be, and it was huge. But why don't we just knock off a bit of other quick business? Some of the other stuff that came out. We had a couple of indie sets on the month.
Yep.
When we got together with Chuck and Caleb, we did the GCW roundup, and Caleb had mentioned that the next two were on the way, and they hit in around the time of WrestleMania, which was right at the time that we talked last.
Mm-hmm.
And it was with their collective set, which seems to be an annual thing now. And then they also did a Joey Janela Spring Break series 6, I believe this is.
Yep.
So those are in the book. I think Impact arrived in April, the first of the 3 that we expect for this year.
2022 series 1.
2022, correct. A couple of indie things. There was the North Shore Pro Wrestling from up here. Let me tell you an interesting story on that. I'm working with the Greektown guys up here on doing their first set. Well, the guy that runs the promotion, Channing, Dave, he sent me a picture when he was in Montreal, and he showed me the picture of this card, and we didn't know about that. We thought the card that we were working on was going to be his rookie card for his promotion. And I asked him, I said, did you know that they were going to put out a card of you? And he says, no. He says, I don't even know where the picture came from. So just so you know, that's how these things go at that level. Some of these indie guys, it's not a big contractual thing. All of a sudden, hey, look, these guys put out a card of me, and that's it. But found that interesting. So, and also Panini announced that Revolution, the next set's going to come up, which we didn't know about a month ago, and it was actually slated for next week, but we just got word today, in fact, that it's delayed until I think the 3rd of June.
Yes.
So that'll give us another few weeks of Prism for us to knock ourselves crazy over, and then Revolution coming. Maybe that'll settle things down, because I think Revolution is going to be a little more down to earth with it. But that was the month of April, and a product called Prism came out, and it rocked our world big time. Now, I guess we can go back and we can talk about how we knew this was all coming, because there was a lot of talk prior to Prism arriving that this is its own animal, and Prism isn't like anything we're ever going to see before. And it was well documented from other sports what Prism was gonna look like,
and it did not disappoint
at all. And the reaction to it was huge. Now,
on both ends of the spectrum, by the way, it was huge in both negativity and positivity, and everything in between.
Yes, and the reason for that, and we'll get into that in a little bit, has to do with opinions of value. What some guys, the guys on the Prism side really think that it's worth versus some of the other people in the hobby. But that Charles Dickens book, The Tale of Two Cities. They say that it starts off it was the best of times, and it was the worst of times. And that's what Prism was, because like every morning I'm getting another text on my phone from someone that's not happy about something that's been said, or not happy about this, or wow, that's going on. And even you and I, when the product first hit, our first sort of eyebrow raising moment was when the very first scene of Color Blast came out. Because remember, we talked a month ago and the product had just hit. And I'm going to talk about the Magic Week. And the Magic Week is that week from April 6th through to about the 11th, when all the crazy sales and big numbers, not to suggest there hasn't been big numbers, but of course, our allure is the sexy 5-figure stuff. And that's what we're looking to see. Is someone going to beat the Roman at 15,000 and how many? But, just for the general public, before we get into the specifics of it, just to talk about what the big deal was with Prism. Do you remember that show back in the 2000s, Deadwood? It's one of my favorite shows of all time. Ever watched Deadwood?
Well, I never watched it, but I know of it.
Yeah, you never watched it.
No.
Watch Deadwood. Any wrestling fans out there? Watch Deadwood. If you don't know Deadwood, look it up, watch it, and then come back to me and say that was wrong. Anyways, there's a character on there, a prospect, a ruthless guy named George Hurst, and he always talks about the color. And he takes over the town and destroys everybody in pursuit of the one color, and that color is gold, because he was a gold prospector during the rush. And all of his making his money and everything was in pursuit of gold. And that's what Prizm became. Unlike any other set that the hobby's ever seen before, Prizm collectors knew this. We in the wrestling hobby were told about this, but we didn't ever experience it firsthand. The big draws were the number to 10 gold base card parallels and the 1/1 black base card parallels. Not necessarily the autographs, not necessarily the insert cards.
Well, we've been preaching that on many episodes of the show. We've been preaching
Yes.
that this is not an autograph based driven product.
No.
It's 100%
Although the autographs have
parallel.
done very, very well. We'll talk
course.
about that. It's not to suggest for a second that the autographs are in that lower tier stuff, but the reality is that those are the big numbers. And again, we're going to talk about the low end because that's the market I play in. And I've got my master set in hand now, so I can talk about my experiences there, what I paid, putting it together and all that stuff. But the stuff we normally talk about when we do pricing is the sexier, higher price stuff. And Color Blast to a secondary extent, although the first one we know that went to 11 grand didn't get paid for, and we'll talk about eBay and stuff not getting paid for. But the first few that came in were big goals. There was a big Undertaker, there was a big Andre, there was a Rey Mysterio for 6,000. We'll go through some of these numbers. And then the 1/1 black Ultimate Warrior, which still stands officially as the biggest sale at $15,000. And those are the big draws of the set. And that's where the prospecting or the speculating, or that's where the big divide of where people think this is what this card should be worth, has to do with those cards in particular, just because they're already, and that seems to be a thing with Prizm.
Yeah.
So
it does. Yeah. There's a lot of speculation, but these are like things that we were kind of talking about already for quite a while. I just think people just thought maybe it wasn't going to happen, maybe.
Yeah, and it did happen, but what happened fairly quickly in the first week, was that a divide occurred. Now we talked about last month shiny versus modern, and that there was a bit of a schism and a bit of dissension from some of those collectors.
Yep.
And then here comes Prizm, and this carries on. Now, I'm not sure if the correlation is direct, that it's all modern guys pro Prizm versus all vintage guys that aren't, because there's people like me that delve in both. And I don't want to come across during this discussion as a pro or anti Prizm guy, because I bought the product and I like it.
Yeah.
But there are some people that are obviously very bullish on the product. They really like it, and they've been, and I don't like to use the word hype. It might seem negative, but for the purposes of sort of describing, I used the word hype machine once, and as soon as I typed it, I realized maybe I shouldn't say that because someone might think that I'm against what they're doing. But at the end of the day, there's a bunch of people in our hobby that really, really, really have, exaggerated isn't the right word, but their opinions of value are much higher than what other people in hobby might think there were. Now, what happened was this product came out. The boxes, but we have to look at things in two ways. We have to look at what happened with the boxes, where their prices went, and then we have to look at the sales of cards on the secondary market, and then try and dissect from there. Okay, if it's possible, who's right? And I don't think we're going to come to an answer there.
No.
But we've got smart, seasoned collectors on both sides that I have respect for, and they see things completely differently. So what I want to do is I want to sort of talk through a few points with you. We'll sort of share our views on it, and then see if we tend to lean towards one side or the other, because like you say, the best of the best and the worst of the worst. But you know what? I'm going to put you on the spot, Tony.
Sure.
Was it a pump and dump?
Based on what I've seen so far, an argument can be made either way, that yes and no.
Yeah. And I'm glad you say that, because this is where the hobby is clearly divided.
But you're also talking to a guy who doesn't give a rat's ass when it comes to the actual overall value of a product. So I don't look at it from that perspective. That's more your lane, that you have to go and kind of evaluate that kind of stuff. Me, as a collector, I just chose where I wanted to pick and what I wanted to collect.
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I've never seen a pump and dump before, at least not in wrestling. I've never seen a set come out where we as a hobby have been divided on the merits, the value of the product, days when it hit. Now, I talked about that Magic Week. That's when a lot of the big numbers happened, and then things started to calm down. And that's when that precipitous down turn started happening with the boxes. Mm-hmm. And as we speak now, what's a box now? What's a hobby box? $750, $800 now?
Yeah, somewhere in that range, yeah.
In that range, and it was up to $1,500, so it's lost more than half its value, or about that. And there are people that are saying now that it's down at $750, they're all going to get scooped up and it's going to go back up. And then there's the anti-prism. And again, I don't mean to label one side bad or good,
Sure.
but there's the left and the right, if you will. The anti-prism guy saying, no, it's going to keep on dropping, right? And that's what this release has been. Every day, something happens where one side sort of says this, one side says that. Now, back to the pump and dump idea, because I want to explore this, because if we say it was, then that's obviously that's answering a question. Now, I agree with you. It's difficult because in straight economic theory, a pump and dump is when a group of investors start to hype a product, market, hype, drive the price up. And as soon as they get that price up, they sell at the height and bail. And that causes a subsequent downturn and everything goes. And that's what
Correct.
did happen with the hobby boxes. Now, from my perspective, and I have a very limited look at social media, so I know the hype guys that I know, the guys that I read every day, so I don't know if I'm exposed to everywhere else, but there definitely has been a pump, and that has never stopped. But from my perspective, the guys that are doing most of the talking, it doesn't seem to me like they're selling. It seems to me they're still in acquisition mode, putting together their PCs, buying what they can. So if it's been guys from outside the hobby or guys that we don't have access to see what's going on, your Prizm people that come in from the sports world, right? If it's them that cause this phenomena of maybe a pump and dump. But for me, it's difficult because I'd never experienced one before. Now, as soon as the boxes started to go down, there's a lot of people on the left side identifying it as a pump and dump right away. And many people sort of agreed with them. They said, yeah, this is a classic sign of what happens is these people push this thing to the moon, then all of a sudden they bail and down it comes. And that is what appeared to be happening.
Sure.
And again, these are smart, learned guys in the hobby that I respect what they have to say. So it's like, well, hang on, how can it be so unclear? Let me just read a quote from the Pro Prizm side, right? It's easy to see why the guys on the vintage, I don't want to call them vintage, but the guys that weren't pro Prizm necessarily, why they see it as a pump and dump. But this was a quote: hobby was originally priced at $700 and $850 a pre-order and is claimed as high as $1,300 plus in some areas. Most of this is because there were so many people who wanted to get their hands on product and reorders were getting tougher to fill at the original price. That isn't a pump and dump. It's just demand versus market cap. No, that's a plausible argument.
It is a plausible argument.
I don't know if that's the case, though. Now, I think people jumped into the product early, that FOMO element. Zan described it well in his segment with The Great Collector. Some people just have to be first, and they came in and they paid some big numbers.
But that's been the case with every release that ever come out.
Yeah, but not to drive prices up where you're paying $8,000 for a non-Drake, $6,000 for a Mysterio.
Of course. Because the market was different 10 years ago or 15 years ago during the Fleer era when every release came out. Yeah, it wasn't getting going up in value, but there was all kinds of, as a seller back in those days, for me buying cases and selling product out there, of course, my stuff was high priced to begin with and people bought it because they had to have it first. There's always that aspect of people. This has been different because we've had a different set of eyeballs come into our hobby who've never been, not even in wrestling fans of any kind. That's where the argument gets made that these guys don't care about wrestling cards. They just want to make money off it quickly as possible.
Right. And they're the ones that came in and made money. So we haven't really.
Somebody paid for it. Somebody bought them.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like we see the product come, we see it go, but then we see a week later, all of a sudden, it's worth half. Yeah. Right. So that's why you can see where the other side is saying, well, hang on a second, here it was just a small
that becomes a level of education that someone needs to go out there and do their homework, to study, to understand the hobbies like that. And unfortunately, there's a lot of collectors out there who don't do that. They don't take the knowledge that is being shared out there, because we live in a time now where we have this show or, Worlds Collide or, Wrestling with
where the information is out there. If you want to go
out there now to help educate people. It's like, listen, here's what we think. Here's what we've seen. Here are some experienced collectors out there from both sides sharing the knowledge, but there's still people like, I gotta have it. I gotta have it. And I'll pay whatever it takes to have it. So it's
all right. So those guys come in, those guys come in, they scoop up the product, they overpay for it, right? And then off they go. Is it pump and dump? Like I don't know, again, because having been in wrestling and only wrestling, it's never happened before. And it seems like something was up, and we can talk about show bids and some of
Sure.
those early numbers not being realistic.
Which absolutely exists across the board in any type of sport or collectible.
So that's nothing out of the ordinary, and that
Yeah,
might be something that's more of a Prism phenomena because they come with their own fan base or their own sort of trail of people that go wherever Prism goes,
sure.
and this is what they do when the release comes out. So pump and dump, yes or no? You're saying maybe.
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 I would tend to, the evidence probably points towards that, I guess. And I guess we won't really know until, ask me in 6 months.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, because over time we're gonna see. Now let's get into some values, and where I'm just gonna throw out some numbers, but excuse me. I guess before we should talk about numbers, I just want to clarify something for the purposes of this discussion. And well, let me take a step back. First of all, you and I aren't the final word on wrestling card prices,
No.
right? By any stretch.
No.
However, with our respective resumes, I still feel that we're as qualified as anybody to talk about this stuff. And I want to talk about the way we put together our numbers and the way sort of I've always approached the wrestling card pricing end of things. If you're a collector and you're a new collector, or you're someone new to the hobby and you want to find out the price of something, you're going to go to the Wrestling Card Price Guide and you're going to look and you're going to get an idea. Or you're going to go to Beckett's and you're going to look there and you're going to get an idea. But that's going to give you a range. And of course, that's something that's been printed God knows how long ago. So it's not current.
This is why people who are looking for that kind of information, they have to understand they always seem to overlook the key word in that. And that is a guide. It's just a guide.
So where do you go from then? Unfortunately, it's not a perfect world, but the only thing we got that anybody can hang their hat on and anybody can sort of check from anywhere in the world at the same time is eBay solds, right? And obviously Heritage and Golden and,
sure,
places like that for bigger number sales. Now, that's not to suggest that private sales don't happen. They happen all the time.
Yep.
But, if they're not verifiable, and we don't have a central repository where that collector can go and say, oh, here's something on WTC that has a record. I've been thinking actually that maybe on Price Guide I might do that with the Hulk and Andre All-Stars that traded for just under 50K, with the one that traded for 36, with Drake's card at 9 and change, the $15,000 Roman, some of these Prism ones,
sure,
just so that we can have the hierarchy. Because again, a lot of the people that I talk to like the fact that we play around in the upper numbers. They want to hear what the new records are. They want to hear the 5-figure sales, because a few $100 is no big deal in wrestling anymore. It's commonplace. And this release had more 4-figure sales of cards than we've ever seen. So if someone wants to say that this card was nuts or this set wasn't significant, they're nuts. It was crazy. It changed the dynamics of everything. We've never seen these kinds of numbers before, even though they may be exaggerated somewhat. The numbers don't lie. So back to what I was saying about pricing. I have to go by 130 Point or some of these other Card Ladder offers some verification. And it was actually suggested in a tweet that, oh, you can't use eBay prices because people fuck around with that stuff all the time and you can't rely on it. But unfortunately for this market, it's all we got. So
it's also the equivalent to, I can't just go off somebody's telling me like, well, that 95 main event said I actually pulled an autograph card out of a pack.
Right.
I have no way to
and you're right to be that way until you're proven wrong.
Correct.
Right? And not to suggest that that anyone's lying or making anything up, but correct. When I hear a black card went for this much money and I ask, well, can you sort of provide information? It's like, no, that's not something that has to be shared. If a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound? It's the oldest question in the world, and my thing is that the prices that we're going to talk about are prices that anybody can verify. And, God bless that there's been 3 gold sale of the Rock apparently in between 20 and 28,000. Not that we can get the number right, but they don't exist to me. Yeah. And that's, I just wanted to get that clear. And again,
no, it's a very valid point, because
I was accused when I sort of approached and said, look, maybe we should get a little tighter on this so that we could give out the information correctly. I was accused of sort of casting doubt and sort of not doing what's best for the hobby. So I figured, okay.
No, how
Yeah.
I don't understand how that's it's casting down or doing what's best for the hobby. I
Well,
think
only because I didn't choose to believe some of these numbers out of hand. And when I
well,
asked that,
I choose
can
not to
you,
believe that someone pulled a Stone Cold Steve Austin card out of a 95 action, a 95 main event set.
I agree with you. Why should
I
you?
choose not to believe that someone pulled a Rock autograph card out of a 98 Comic Images pack. It's like that. I know otherwise, and until you can prove to me otherwise, your word is just your word, and I have no way to actually validate that kind of stuff. Now that the site at WTC has been updated so much lately, I'm starting to drive the attention of some of the grading card companies now are actually sending me messages, which I haven't actually made this public before until this very moment. But I've actually been getting messages from PSA, from Beckett, from SGC. People are actually using the submission forms on the website that say, "Hi, my name is such and such. I'm a researcher from PSA. I need to." They're asking for information. So it's really important that we're as accurate as possible because I can't just do hearsay. I can't just report information that's just like, well, you said that someone did this, but I don't know. I have no video evidence. I have no
And
actual
again, I'm
proof of
not
that.
meaning to accuse anybody and say that
I'm
anybody's
not either.
lying,
No, I'm not
but
either.
but some of the things I don't understand, like if I got a $15,000 card or a $20,000 card, I'm not going to try and sell it privately. I'm going to do like you did with your Hogan. I'm going to go to Heritage. I'm going to go to Golden. If I'm going to use eBay, I'm going to do the $30,000 starting. I don't know, like it just doesn't intrinsically doesn't make sense to me that all these sales are happening sort of
Well,
off the
I can
grid.
understand from the fee perspective and tax perspective. I mean, if I have a $20,000 sale on eBay is a hell of a lot worse than a $20,000 cash deal privately.
Yes, of course. But is there a market of guys out there? Like I would think to get the most money, you're going to go to these places we just mentioned. That
Sure.
would normally be the play for anybody serious in the market to obtain these kinds of cards. But then when you hear that this one went for this,
Especially in
this
our
one went for
market,
that,
you're going to have someone who's selling a high end card who's not used to our
well,
market, and then just are they selling to other people who are not within our market?
correct. It ends up opening up a whole thing, and it's not only that it's not it's not verifiable, but it's also easily to be manipulated. I can
Sure.
call Anthony now and say, Anthony, that Hurricane Mask card that I've always wanted, I'm going to give you 15 grand for it. Can you please, actually, I'm going to give you $15,005 to set the record.
Yeah.
Right. Can you please just say that I, Anthony, sold to Paul on this date, this card, and then there it is. And then I can put it on the record that, hey, this happened. And then I can send Anthony the 1,500 that I bought the card for. You know what I mean? I'm sure David Peck has sold copies of his Hogans privately to people. And, if he wanted us to know, he'd let us know.
Sure.
Right. And then we take that because of who he is, and he'd give us some sort of proof.
Because he's a very reputable person in the industry. It's like that.
Precisely.
That we know for a fact that.
But if we've got someone that's relatively new, not relatively new, but if we got someone reporting prices daily, and I'm trying to say, look, again, not meaning to disagree with you, but I'm a guy that talks about this stuff, puts it out publicly. Is there some way we can create a repository where you can share names? And no. Just the fact that they told me about it is sufficient enough, and you should go with that. And if you don't do that, you're sowing doubts in the community. I'm well, okay, right? But so that off my chest, my numbers are numbers that when I say them, you can go on to 130 point, which is what most of the people in the card world do to see eBay souls, and you can verify them. Anyway, so let's talk about these numbers, because some people are saying, well, Prizm is all that. Let me tell you what Prizm is. An Ultimate Warrior Black, 15 grand. A Gable Stevenson Gold, 14,000. And then we subsequently saw another Gable go to grading, and it's sitting now for sale at 50K still.
Yeah.
Undertaker Gold, 12,000. Now, let me say this, an Undertaker Gold today sold for 6, so it's dropped in half, right? But again, you're dealing with finite, and we're going to get into in a second about the value of these, the perceptions of value, if you will, Tony, because it's very interesting. Andre Gold, $8,000, 888 Gold, 6,300. Rey Mysterio, $6,000. Rey Mysterio.
That's a big shock right there by itself. But
yeah,
go on. Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, tons and tons of three-figure cards, many four-figure autograph cards on a scale that we've never seen before with a release prior to this date. So, when people talk about, yeah, it's a pump and dump and it was a flop, this product, the product was not a flop. We just have two groups of people with different opinions of what the overall value of it. But I'll tell you guys honestly, I deal in the lower end, right? I buy base sets, I buy insert sets. Now, let me go back a step. Several months ago, before even AEW came out, and even though we knew Prism was coming, there were a lot of people that saying, well, your master set collectors are going to be left out in the cold.
Yep.
I wanted to say definitively that is not the case, because I bought a master set. When I say master of Prism, that's the 200 base cards plus the 100 insert cards, not including the color blast, because they're not really insert cards. They were super short printed anyway. Right. And I bought those 300 cards last week for $250. So I'm still about $50 below where they are market. But honestly, in a month's time, I think I would have overpaid for them. But to give you an idea, so $250, assuming that the inserts are a little rarer than normal cards, you know, about 60, 70 cents a card. Right. So that is very attainable still, because if I can do it, I don't see why others can't. And it's no different than what AEW was. You know, it was very, very easy to put together. And people are saying, well, they're a buck a card, or, you know, they've gone, you know, when they first came out, your FOMO people paid $30 for an Andre base, right? And I got one for 60 cents. But of course, I bought the 300 cards. Now, let me just speak to the cards itself, because a month ago you asked me what I thought about them, but they had just come and I'd seen pictures. I got the 300 cards. I spent almost 2 hours, Tony, the other day, opening them all up, putting them into the binders, doing the flip through, cataloging for my own records, and spending time looking at the set. And I realized with all the names that they put in, like when people say this is the greatest checklist they've ever seen, it's like, that's a lot of hyperbole for something that's been out for a few days. But they didn't fuck around on this set. Like everybody is in it. So it was a monstrous effort, notwithstanding all the parallels and everything else that was made. But it was to me, you know, as a guy that has them all, it's an impressive set. There's no doubt about it. You know, so am I a Prism guy? Yeah, I think I am. You know, like I like the product, and you know, what I don't like is what happened as a result of Prism. But I'm not going to blame Prism for the sort of divide that has happened amongst the community. And, you know, maybe we shouldn't be talking about it as much, you know, like if we sort of shed light on it, then it grows kind of thing, if we sort of ignore it. But it's sad to me.
It's kind of our job, though. I mean, these are accidents, and we're reporters who are reporting the accidents.
That's true. And you know what, guys, Tony, maybe it's naive of me to think that, hey, we have this one great thing in common, right? Like I collect pieces of cardboard wrestling's on it. So does David Peck. So does all these new guys. You know, we have the same bloody thing in common. Why can't we get along? And the crux of the whole thing, or sort of the focal point where the divide really sort of crystallized for me, and I'm like, oh, fuck, this is a mess, is on that rock auction. The rock gold card comes out, and it goes on eBay, and it promptly sells for $9,000 real fast. Now, there's a bunch of things I want to talk about before we get to what happened afterwards. This card didn't heretofore exist on the market before someone pulled it out of the pack. So my dear friends, it had zero value, right? Until somebody paid $9,000 for it, right? Someone ran a Twitter poll, a thread that said $9,000, all this was $9,000, too much or too little. And honestly, the responses were probably 50-50. A lot of people, your pro Prism guys saying way too low, should be double that, triple that. Other guys saying $9,000 for a base card parallel, that's insane. You know, and we had that divide. I personally thought $10,000 is about right. $9,000, you know, like, but what did I know? And that's what I'm trying to suggest, that, you know, it's very difficult when something didn't exist and you're hopeful that your top cards in a set is going to be your blacks, or it's going to be your gold Rock, your gold Hogan, your gold Austin. Now, the auction came and went, and it sold for $9,000, and then we promptly found out that it was a buy it now, where the seller wasn't aware of what he had. And I stopped the conversation right there. No one was aware of what that value was, despite the fact that people had a hopeful value of what they thought it was going to be. And I thought, well, what the fuck do they think it's worth if it's not worth $9,000? And then that's when it started to go. And all of a sudden, $50,000 was being thrown out there. And I'm thinking, wow, like it's not the same jump going from $100 to $500 that it is going to $10,000 to 50. And all of a sudden, you know, someone on the other side said, 50, are you mad? And the next thing you know, two guys that have been friends in this hobby, all of a sudden downgraded this thing to the point where they don't follow each other anymore. And it was very unfortunate for me to see, because it degraded verbally, you know, insults were thrown. I'm thinking, this is just over your opinion now. I don't think that rock card is worth 50 grand, right? But I wouldn't get into a fight over it.
It's only worth what someone's willing to pay for it.
Precisely.
Like
now the next one's going to come out. We're going to find out. Now a few have come out, and it's been said that, oh, they've traded in between 20 and 28 grand. It's like, well, which is it? Where is it? Who is it? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right.
Yeah.
So that should have been it, but that wasn't it. What happened was that some of these guys on the pro side took it upon themselves, altruistic guys that they were, to inform the seller that he really fucked up and he left money on the table, so to cancel this auction. Now, in contrast law, that's known as torturous interference. Would that I could go and meddle in some of the deals that I've done in the past and undo things and get in between people, just to shit the store. But anyways, that happened. The seller canceled the auction. And I should say this, in fairness, the Color Blast John Cena, as we were aware, which came out right off the hop and was shown as sold at 11 grand and change, that didn't complete either, because that buyer subsequently found out, oh man, I've way overpaid because other ones are coming in at a lot less.
Yep.
That guy's just as guilty.
Yep.
Right. That guy's just as guilty. Now I know the argument is, well, eBay's a shit show, so you know what? It's okay that in this case, and you wouldn't want that to happen to you. I'm thinking, I wouldn't want it to be the buyer in that case. If a bunch of people came and interfered with my buying of something, I would be, what the fuck is this all about? It's insane. So, do you know how many times, Tony, that I've negotiated until 2 a.m. on a house and then woken up the next morning and wished I could do a do-over, And
we all
have. And that's what that was. And that really highlighted to me the sort of divide that's happened all over, a bunch of guys being really optimistic over the value of the product versus a bunch of other guys that firmly believe, well, the proof is there in black and white. Can't you see it? And here we are talking about it still resolving nothing, because I'm not going to jump into one camp and say that once I was right or once I was wrong. But I really thought that it was a shame that was the sort of fulcrum, if you will, for people to sort of lose their shit. And,
well, we did predict that things were going to be crazy, that the Prizm boys were coming into our hobby.
The Prizm boys, but I didn't expect guys that were friendly with each other, to turn on each other, because one guy thought that, one guy's collecting his Roman Reigns rainbows, and another guy is like, I bought something that's decreased in value times 10, here it is. And it's like, well, guys, nobody really knows, I'd like to say, like, I'd like to declare, oh, this is worth, the rock is a $25,000 card and grade is worth $35,000. And we talked about this last month with opinions, to throw these numbers out there, it's silly, because we don't know. It's what you said a moment ago. A card is one day to the next, there's a variation in value just on who's searching it at a given time.
Especially when you're doing eBay, because the same market's not watching the same time every day, every week.
I can't tell you how many times this month I saw, with respect to the pro guys, and again, not meaning to dump on the pro guys, because I like the product, and I'm here to report that it's been a great product for the hobby, except for the collateral damage that we caused, not Prizm. Prizm's not guilty of this stuff. It's just guys with egos, perhaps. And I've realized, having talked offline with a bunch of people on both sides of the equation, that, what, some guys just don't like each other, for whatever reason, and look, we being statesmen of the hobby, we've got egos to a certain degree that, hey, I'm the price guy, you're the WTC guy.
Hey, we air our grievances and our difference of opinions privately, but we never bring it out publicly and try to cause any rifts. So,
and I'll tell everybody, I did this. Now it's not my place to interfere. And that's why I woke up and I said, what am I doing? Why am I getting in the middle of this stuff? I approach both sides privately, offline. And I expressed to the pro Prizm guy that, I'm not, none of my business, but, perhaps your tone could be a little, not quite, a little more flattering, if you will. Some of the language that's been thrown out there has been unfortunate. And again, it's insulting. Guys shouldn't be called greedy. Guys shouldn't be called toxic. Guys shouldn't be called douchebags. This is the stuff that's going on. I shouldn't have to answer my phone in the morning, and you know who I'm talking about.
Of course I
do. What's wrong with it? And it's like, can't we all just get along? But well, maybe not.
Well, that's hey, but as I did my WTC short about this is the type of attention and this is the type of spotlight we wanted on our hobby for so long. We wanted to be acknowledged. And,
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
here,
yeah.
and here we are in a hobby, play with the big boys out there, and the Trouts and the Jordans and the Gretzky's and whatever else you want, whatever sport you pick, these big number type of cards. And here we are now having a bigger spotlight put on us. And when you get a bigger spotlight, more people want to see what's going on, and you're opening yourself to a lot more divide. And we've seen it. So now it's about a matter of how we're going to navigate ourselves to this divide. Are we going to have to go and pick our sides? Am I no longer be friends with such? And I hope not, because I still play nice with everybody. I see the points being made by everybody, and I don't agree with anyone.
So it's very easy, like you just suggested, to become guilty by association.
I don't. That's the case too. I mean,
because some of these guys,
that is a minute demographic out there of people who say, I don't like these people, and you associate with these people, therefore I'm not talking to you because you associate. You know what? I don't care. It doesn't bother me. My site, the site and the community is still going to keep growing. It's going to keep going on. The wrestling card price guide will continue to keep living.
It will.
WTC will continue to keep living.
What's mind-boggling to me is that these are guys that are leaders of the hobby right alongside with us.
Sure.
That are giving us probably more so than anybody else, just-in-time news on what's been going on with vintage stuff, with new stuff, respected opinions, a lot of followers for both. But they just don't like each other. And, we can't change that. And maybe that was the case before Prizm. But certainly, here I am thinking that maybe we can talk it through and figure out, who's right and who's wrong. And I still don't know.
We're not here going to solve this. We're not wrestling card psychologists. So we're
before we go off Prizm, I got a few quotes that I'm going to read just from the last month. And then I'm going to get your opinions on it. But one thing that Chuck wanted me to mention, I'm glad I remembered what.
Chuckster, the slam dancer.
Chuck was disappointed about the white sparkles, how off-centered they were. And that was a big concern of a lot of people. And still, with the off-centering being what they were, still doing well. I think in Austin got $8,000, an Austin white signature, Also about the signatures. Now, of course, that argument's been had and done, that's just not a Panini thing. They don't do on-card signatures, but there was some upside-down signatures on his product.
Sure.
So Chuck's point was just make a point of mentioning that, for something that was supposed to be premium, a lot of loose edges on it.
So, definitely. But that's kind of been the case with Panini over the years anyways, is their quality control hasn't always been top-notch. It is what it is, I guess, in that sense. So it's like, I think those who've been in the hobby long enough. I mean, I'm new to Panini as well, especially Prizm. But from people I've talked to, it's like that. It's kind of par for the course that Panini's customer service has always been, less than desirable, and their quality assurance sometimes doesn't seem to be on par. So I don't know about that personally, because I've never bought in the products. So I don't know. I can't say, but I'm just kind of reporting what I've been told. But I'm not surprised.
So stay tuned for more Panini. I mean, obviously, before Revolution hits, we're going to have more of this stuff. We're still waiting for the Holy Grails. I mean, I'm going to be the first guy to pop the champagne when something goes over 15,000. But sorry, I'm not recognizing that has happened yet because I just don't know about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I unless there's some sort of very verifiable way to document these things, they just are just talk. Just talk. I don't base a checklist on the website of like, hey,
you can't.
I know a guy who knows.
Exactly.
I can't do that.
Before we go on to other stuff price wise, I'm going to read you a few quotes and then we'll wrap up. And it sort of touches upon everything that we've said. And some of these, I guess you can answer by saying this is hyperbole or this is realistic.
Sure.
Prizm is already the most successful WWE product ever produced, and nothing will change that. Every day since release, cards have sold at prices that would just not happen in any other product.
I guess that's based on perception, I guess, then, right?
Opinion.
Is a product is only successful if it has high dollar and items in it? That's what justifies success.
How many new people have come into the hobby? How has the wrestling hobby grown? How many more people have come to my website and your website over the last month because of this? I count that as a success, regardless of the fact that for a week we had people that came in and paid more than they should have for the prices.
Yeah, now, I don't care. Hey, I don't care what people pay for their stuff. I mean, it tweets their own with their own money. It's like that. I mean, but yes, I agree with you. I think that more eyeballs, we've always talked about more eyeballs been brought on the product, but I think that was already done with AEW stuff too. That more eyeballs were brought on that, so that make that AEW the second most successful product ever released.
Well, there was a bigger buzz on this for sure. Like the AEW, the pre-buzz on AEW was big, but once this hit, like once AEW hit, everyone was happy and it died down. But once this hit, every day shit was happening.
Yeah.
There was, what's happening with this? Is this real? What's
Yeah,
going
but I
on?
see the same. I see the same in both. AEW
Really?
when it hit was really popular and it was a buzz.
Oh yeah, yeah.
People are asking thousands of dollars for cars they can't get hundreds for now. Okay.
Yes.
So is that a pump and dump? And so
but it wasn't though, because there was no one from outside the hobby that had a vested interest to try and pump this up to make money on the run. And we don't even know if that happened. We didn't even answer our own question.
We had a lot of people who got into wrestling cards because of AEW. We know this. Okay. So we've had a lot of new faces coming to that. Not the same level that we've had from Panini Prizm, obviously, but does that make these two the number one, number two most successful products in wrestling?
All right. Well, let me read this next quote, because this is a quote to the question you just asked. Prizm has already become a landmark set, regardless of what is said by certain individuals. More importantly, the golds and blacks have already become some of the most important wrestling cards ever produced. The success of what Prizm has done for WWE cards can't be measured.
I tend to agree with that.
So that's not hyperbole. You believe that. And you know what? To the checklist, like I said earlier, it might be the greatest checklist I've ever seen.
It might be.
Is this the greatest set that's ever come out? It's difficult to say that 2-3 weeks in, you know what I mean? Like, shouldn't we?
That's why I said, ask me in 6 months.
Right.
I cannot wait. Like, I'm already waiting for, May of 2023 to talk about this.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to know. Depending on what such and such paid on Instagram for his gold rock within last week, we have had 3 cards all sell above 20K for Prizm. Love seeing the market go in this direction. So this just speaks to what we said earlier. Good that
it's speculation first off.
Yeah,
it's not confirmed.
Yeah, and
it's not I know a guy who knows a guy theory doesn't apply here.
Right, and we're not going to count it, at least in our circles officially. Yeah, like here's I wrote this down just because it bugged me that someone would say this. I honestly don't care if you're into vintage, modern, tops, flair, panini, whoever. Be a rallying cry, not a self-righteous douche who wants to tear this down. It's not worth it for a niche market that's finally getting its time in the sun. And again, the point is probably right. The language is wrong.
The verbiage is a little probably harsh, like that.
Yeah,
but the point is valid.
Yes, and that's why I picked that one. It's like, this is an excellent point that's been smothered over. Like, I don't like, again, when people that I perceive to be my friends are called asshats by another guy who I thought could be my friend.
Yeah.
But that seems to be sort of the thing. And now I'll read this last one. And again, it's not to shit disturb or anything. But last month I talked about opinions, and so much of what we've discussed up until now.
They're like assholes, but go ahead.
Yeah, these are our thoughts of people that have been doing this, some longer than others, some to a bigger degree than others. But these are all what we believe to be the case. But again, when we're talking about prices of something that we just don't know where the market's going to do for it, to get wrapped up on this stuff and to make these constant prognostication of what's going to happen, you really have to temper it by saying, well, maybe not. And this is probably my favorite quote, but from the guy that had the most to say about anything this month. He said, no, the following predictions are not set in stone. As this plays out, we could see things go in a completely different direction. I may also be an idiot, which should be factored into everything. And I thought to myself, that one I clapped to, because that is correct.
It's correct.
So that's Panini, folks. We'll probably have more to talk about down the way. Color Blast we didn't talk about so much, and then the autograph cards, but you know what, we're going to be looking at the higher end. That's the stuff that people are excited on. Is that 15K barrier going to be broken officially? And as soon as it is, we'll let you know.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, my brother, so shall we quickly look at non-Panini sales for the month?
Let's look at the top non-Panini card sales for the month.
Yeah, now also it didn't make sense to merge the Panini with the regular sales of the month, because obviously Panini would have smoked everything.
Correct.
But in actual fact, the biggest sale for April was a 2014 Roman Reigns Chrome Refractor, numbered to 50 PSA 10 for $12,000, right? So that equaled all but the top sale of Panini. Mm-hmm. And this isn't even a superfractor. This is a numbered to 50 gold of Roman that went for $12,000. So if now all of a sudden numbered to 50s are going to start approaching 5 figures, that's going to be very interesting.
Yep.
So, and the number 2 sale for 9489 was a 1982 Ric Flair's All-Star and 9.5. Again, to my point of last month, you're going to see both. We're going to have vintage, we're going to have all-stars, and we're going to have modern. And then next month, there's going to be a boatload of Panini, but there's still going to be an all-star. There's probably still going to be a GPK Transcendent. You know, Panini obviously won this month, but over time, things will settle. Hulk Hogan at 9101, and Alexa Bliss Transcendent at 8,000. For Zan's card, 2013 Hulk Hogan Upper Deck PMG, 7680.
I'm sure
That's a good one.
Yeah, he's happy with that, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure he would be.
But I'm not selling it for 3 times that, 5 times that.
No,
it's good.
No. And that's good. You know, that's the collector's mentality. You know, I was thinking about it when I was holding that Andre the Card base set from Prizm. And here's a card I paid 60 cents or whatever the hell it was. And then I think about the guy that paid $8,000 for the gold. It's the collector mentality versus the investment mentality. Obviously, I get it. The one that's worth $8,000 is because it's rarer and finite number. But I'm looking at them in my mind, the collector going, it's the same card. One just has a printing process done to it. Now, is that worth $8,000? In my mind, it's not. And I'm happy to continue buying my base cards and my insert card sets because I sleep at night. If I was the guy that had to pay the $8,000 for the Andre, I'm worried. I'm always thinking, you know, is it going up? Is it going down? I've never had those thoughts.
But you don't know his checkbook. You don't know $8,000 nothing to him. And goes,
it could be. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Okay. If you're not Drake, if you're a normal guy, I mean, Drake, not Magruder, Drake, the rap star that can pay anything. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Seen on Orton Duel, 2010 tops, 2030. That's interesting because we don't often talk about 2010 tops. You know, they're the ones that had those squirrely sort of autographs.
Yep.
That's a good number. Numbered 25, $2,000 for a dual auto. A Kane Transcendent Superfractor 1/1 went for $2,000, and a 2021 Goldberg Transcendent Redwood for $2,000. Now, there's tons of Prizm sales in the 2000 range that we're not mentioning. And the next month, like for example, if you go on to 130 Point and you look at your eBay solds, it gives you like 120 days. If you type in Panini Prizm highest price, you're going to go past 120 before you get into 3 figures. So that gives you an idea how many 4-figure wrestling cards from Panini sold. And there's no disputing that. You know, that's a fact. That's not an opinion of Tony and Paul's opinion about market. That's the reality that those cards got bought and paid for. So the release was huge. You know, it just was.
Yep,
and
100%.
You know, that seals that argument. Okay, my brother. And I guess the last thing is just we'll quickly go through the index.
Yep, the index, our monthly index, which I always look forward to. I love these.
Yeah, well, the first one was the AEW Hobby Box. And you know what? From March to April, it didn't change at all. In March, it was 242.44 on average. And in April, it was 241.39. So it's almost exact. That shows you how stable the price of that AEW Hobby Box is holding compared to what we just went through with Prizm going up and then down. And then the other thing that we were doing was the AEW base sets.
And that's come down exactly where we said it was going to come down.
Exactly. I was just going to make the point that you made the prediction exactly last month when it was at $35. You said might go down to 25 next month. And look, it went down to 27, 22.
With a lot of sales, by the way, that helped that average. We had several sales that were at 20 and 25.
Yeah, one as high as 40. So, you know,
if it wasn't for that $40 sales like that, it would have been around 25 bucks.
It would have been. It would have pushed the average down. I almost bought 30 relics of lesser names for $350 the other day. So about $10 a piece. But that gives you an idea. And again, they were all the lesser name relics, but because there were so many of them, I thought I should get these just to put them on a flip through or just to have a bunch of relics. But I didn't. But just to give you an idea, that's how far down they've come. And they were selling $40, $50 when it first came out. Mm-hmm. So that's AEW holding firm on the hobby boxes. Base sets coming down to nothing. So good for we master collectors. Then
I'm looking to buy. I'm looking for base sets. Anybody want to sell me base sets for 20?
Yeah, anyone that's looking to. Well, that's the thing for a guy that's
just because I want to sell
a retail store soon. It's good that you're going to be able to acquire those for less. Now, what I did also on this month is that I didn't do the raw all-stars because it's difficult to talk about wrestling all-stars raw because there's so little of it that hasn't been graded to this point. Sure. So, you know, we get one sale, you know. So I decided, okay, because we just did the AEW base set, let's look at our Prizm base set. And like I say, it started off where you were paying about $350 for a Prizm base set. And like I said earlier, I just bought the master set. So the base set and the additional 100 inserts for $250. Yep. I expect that's going to go down. As of when I wrote this for you last Friday, it averaged out at about 165.50. I think that's around what Anthony paid about 2 weeks ago. A high of around 200, a low of 128. That's going to come down, guys.
Yep.
Is it going to come down to 100 where you're paying 50 cents a card? That's hard to say. Again, it's the kind of thing I don't want to say.
Because
It could do.
as more variations of this product have hit, with
There's more
blaster,
base cards.
blaster boxes, all their different types of versions of this product coming out and hitting different places. I mean, hell, I think that somebody just talked. They found something at J.C. Penney.
Really? So
I mean, it's everywhere. So there's a lot of places to get it. It's very, very, very mass produced when it comes to getting the base stuff. And I think that as more product gets out there, I see this being $100 base set, no problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, I probably paid a little more than that now because I paid $250 for the 200 plus the extra. But yeah, they're going to come down, and you're going to also see your lesser parallels, your blues, your reds.
Sure.
And I was thinking about that, like back in 2010 when Topps put out Platinum and they did the greens, the blues, the reds. You get the rainbow with 5 cards, but if you're looking to do your rainbow now, what is there? 20 different treatments of those cards.
20 plus, yeah.
Seriously, so you can get your orange, your blue, your black, your gold, or you probably can't get those, but then there's your red, white, and blue prismatics, and then this
Oh, yeah.
feature, and the shimmer, and on and I was thinking, wow, like it's incredible that they've put out this much product. So it's not surprising that
because
we're going to get the base set.
people need to keep in mind, like, well, there's all these cards, yeah, but when you buy a pack, no matter what kind of pack you're getting, what else is making up the rest of that pack?
It's
Base cards.
Yeah, of course.
So, and there's a lot of it out there. So it's
Yeah.
going to be, you're going to see these base prices.
And that shouldn't have been a surprise. That shouldn't have been a surprise to
No, it
anybody,
shouldn't have been.
knowing sort of the volume that was made. It was, I couldn't say back then, but when there was talk about the master collectors being in trouble with 2 releases, I was thinking, well, stuff's gonna have to be really expensive for that to happen. And immediately I could see, when I saw in the first week of the Prizm numbers going down, I said, there's not going to be a problem with these. If they've lost 50% of their value in week 1, I'm fine in week 4. And I bought in week 3, and if I would have waited until week 6, like I said, I'd probably do better. But again, I wanted to get them here. So prior to this discussion, I could actually hold the product fungible, and talk to you intelligently on what I thought about the product. And I like it. It's a wonderful set. It's again, just a shame that so many of us have differing opinions of value, and that sort of caused this grand divide.
Yep.
So Panini base set, 1985 Topps Hulk Hogan. We've been looking at that one for a while. We've seen a bit of a reduction in that one. That was consistently around a $50 card, 45, 40, and now it's down to 33. That could have been a few recent low sales, 18, 50, 21, 27. One of the big questions that's being asked is, what does Prizm do for the hobby for we wrestling guys, not the Prizm guys that come in and then go out? Does the spillover do us any good? Do somebody
like was it supposed to be
all tides, all tides rise boats, whatever the saying is.
Yeah.
Has that been happening? Well, it's too early to tell. It's been 3 weeks, for God's sakes, but there has been some deals. There has been some chrome stuff out there. There's been stuff that I've been looking at that's like, well, the wrestling market is far better than where we were, say, 2 months ago, but there's still opportunities to buy stuff out there. And if you're a modern shiny guy, there's lots of stuff there. I posted the Undisputeds. They've been going up. They're still gettable at a very reasonable price. And again, if you're if you're a PC collector and you want all the Dexter Loomises from this set, it's not going to happen, but if you want a few of them, while you were in over the pond, a Dexter Loomis Gold came up, and I think it was like $18, something like that. I don't know what it sold for ultimately, but I was going to bid on it, but they wouldn't ship to Canada, and I was going to say, hey Chuck, we should get this for Tony just in case.
Would love to have it.
We'd look that up and see, but there are goals out there of the lesser named people that you can get for, I don't like to use the word cheap because it connotes quality, but for less money.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple of things. People have actually done some good stuff for me, so I can share with it a little bit. I mean, I have some Prizm in my hands. I mean, I have.
Oh, there you go.
I have a Loomis autograph, and then I have a red, and I have just a base.
Now, it's funny that red is probably worth more than the autograph. I can't tell that. Well, I've never held a silver, so I don't know a silver to the base, but that looks like a base.
Okay, I guess so. I have no idea, but it was
like nice. They're nice cards. They're thick cards. They got they're like a high end chrome card. It's a wonderful set, and it's an exhaustive set. That's why people are saying that the checklist is phenomenal, and it is. Like there was names on there probably from UK NXT that I'd never heard of. Who's this A Kid or A Rod or whatever he was? And
sure.
I'd never experienced. I watched the product, and And yeah, and the last one is the 1991 WCW Impel base sets, and they seem to be holding firm. 2133, 2283.
Hey,
You know,
as long as demand is still there, I'll continue to keep pumping them out.
yeah. Well, Zen and I had a joke on Twitter. I don't even know if you caught that exchange where I said that he was saying that these things are being printed to this day and the value is holding, and I said, yeah, but Tony's going to have to re-up his inks pretty soon, and he knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, that's funny.
So
Uh,
that's all the stuff we had notes on historical
well,
positions we talked
I'm
about.
actually surprised that we had no complete sales for the Royal Rumble, which we've been keeping track of
No,
for well a
no,
long
that's
time.
an odd one because we've, we didn't have complete for last month, but we've always had at least three or four. You know what that means is that people have been listening to us and they've been scooping them up. I think if we ever find enough of them again, that might approach the $300 range now. Again, everyone's talking about those 4 rookies, and as more people come into the hobby and they've gotten their hands on Prizm and they're like, oh wow, there's a whole back catalog of wrestling stuff, and there's an awesome, well, 2 in fact, awesome sites that you can go to get information on this stuff. Maybe they'll go back and start scooping some of this up. And unfortunately,
Right.
some of it isn't scoopable anymore. And this is the age-old argument that people like myself that hang on to stuff. Well, I'm a collector. I'm supposed to hang on to this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not speculating on Prizm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there's stuff out there, and stuff does come available. And if I can still obtain stuff, back catalog, I'm not talking about the new stuff that comes out.
Yeah.
If I'm still in pursuit of events, and now I realize that even $1,000 isn't going to do it. I tried for another 2 this month and I didn't get them. So that market's
Yeah.
continuing to
But
rise.
if, if you got some cool fun projects now for like, Chuckster himself has gone back and started made an
Yeah.
actual hobby of going out and filling in
The
holes.
triggers.
And, of older releases, and he's having a lot of fun doing it too. It sounds like.
Yeah.
So that's what's fun about
Well,
it.
I was confused on that because when he talked about that originally, I wasn't sure about which ones he was referring to. And then he explained it to me. I'm like, oh, those are just regular insert sets that came out with different releases. So I should have all those,
Yeah.
or most of them. And it turns out I did, but I just had them listed not as separate sets, but as part of the insert set of that release. So if it was a Road to WrestleMania and there was a John Cena Says, that was just, now in my collection, I put them all together. Oh, this is the Cena one. So I
Yeah.
probably got them all together, but I never, at first I didn't sort of click into what he was talking about.
Yeah, but even that stuff like that, he's going across the board on so many things he's looking to fill in, which is, again, it just shows you that the hobby has a little something for everybody. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
what you're into, and it can be affordable. It's still not going to be this high end other sport type of stuff. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of fun to be had. So don't think you've been priced out on this. Just kind of change your focus a little bit.
Right.
You can still continue to have a lot of fun.
I was led to believe that I would be priced out of Prizm. I wasn't priced out of Prizm. Same thing about AEW. If I was a parallel collector and I wanted 20 of my Roman Reigns, that I'm not going to get.
Yeah.
But that, I don't play in the $15,000 card world. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And shout out to Drake Magruder on his 101 Vince. That card's got to be the smartest purchase. I mean, if we're getting 12 grand for the Roman Reigns number to 50,
Yeah.
Again, I could get into trouble on Twitter by saying what that's worth. But people have this exaggerated sense of what 50 grand is. Maybe they've never actually had 50 grand to know, but 5 grand and 50 grand are 2 different things. And yeah, everyone's got an opinion. We talked about that, and everyone could say it's worth 40, it's worth 30, it's worth, you don't know. I don't know. You don't know. The market will tell us. Ultimately, we'll get to the bottom of it, but don't start calling people names on Twitter because of it. But again, hey, who am I to say? Do whatever you like. Have fun.
To each their own, man. If calling people names is what gets you off, then
Yeah. Couple of quick announcements before we adjourn.
Yeah,
We have to put in our plugs for the National. We're going to be at the National. We're going to be on the main stage doing a panel. We can't announce it formally yet because we just don't know when that is.
Yep.
We're only going to be there for the first 3 days and a bit of the Saturday. So we haven't worked out our timings with them yet because they actually threw out a time for the late on Saturday. And I said, oh, we're not available at that time. So we're trying to get that sorted out. But it's going to be the first time that wrestling cards have ever been featured at the National on the main stage. You, me, a couple of other people from the hobby, anyone that's going to be in Atlantic City for that time is going to be a part of it.
Sure.
And it's going to be something really cool. Second thing, obviously, is Top Rope Con, your deal that's coming up in September. We talked offline before. You sort of caught me up on all the exciting things that are happening. It's going to be great, guys.
Well, by the time this actually airs like that, people will have known that our latest announcement was Kurt Angle is being now going to be at the show, which I'm really excited about. So he'll be there Saturday only. There will also be a special gold medal package deal that you can check on the website and get the pricing for that. Will be very limited. I think we sold to only 35 people, where you'll have a special, be off the floor type of meet and greet with him, where you get some items signed and get a selfie and stuff like that. Some other special perks like that too. But
Guys.
yeah, so it's going to be fun. So we got a lot more names that I have now confirmed, and over the next several weeks we'll be announcing them mostly on Sundays. So.
Awesome. Yeah, so come to that. Come join us at the National. I'm happy to announce that for the first time, I'm going to be releasing Wrestling Card Price Guide promo cards to give out at the National and give out at the events. Yeah, well, instead of just walking around saying, "Hey, this is what I do," some little keepsake for people.
There you
go. And that's it. Prism, more Prism. Enjoy the product, guys. Don't kill each other over it.
Yeah. And where people who are just getting into the hobby, because we have a lot of new eyeballs in this project we're talking about, where can they find you, sir?
My name's Paul. I am the curator and owner of thewrestlingpriceguide.com. Go there to find sort of what you said earlier, a low and high sort of idea of what it is. But if you want to know exactly, you got to go onto eBay and you got to look and see what the market really is. We have videos there, and a bunch of them are on WTC now. I guess you're going to put more of those on over time. Yeah. Twitter is where I'm normally posting stuff and chatting with people. The handle there is card_guide. You, Tony?
Everything's at wrestlingtradingcards.com. Links at the bottom of every page. I've been away for a little bit, so I'm looking forward.
But you're back now, baby.
Getting back now for a little bit, and then got a lot of work ahead of me. Still doing links, adding images all the time. Got David Porto, getting back into the swing of things of adding images again, and Chuckster's been super helpful, and people are starting to send their stuff. And again, guys, you guys out there, all the Drakes out there who have and guys out there who have these one-of-ones and really hard to find stuff, I would love to have scanned images, man. Send me the scanned images.
Me too, in fact, because I'd like to do that. I'd like to do a page of the top sales, so that we have somewhere where the outside world can say, okay, what are the biggest selling wrestling cards ever? And here they are. Here are the 2 All-Stars that went through gold, and here's this, here's that. Maybe we might miss along a few along the way, but that might prompt people to say, hey, I sold a card to such and such verifies it, and we can add that. You know what I mean? But none of this. I know the guy. You don't need to know the guy. If I don't, if someone's telling me that I don't need to know the guy, then the hobby doesn't need to know the guy, and that's just not how it works.
Yeah. I'm actually looking for the images to add to the checklist, so collectors can actually see what these actually look like. And that's all it really is. It's just an archive to let everybody know what these cards are.
Accuracy, so that PSA doesn't have to think twice about checking your site or checking my site to say, oh yeah, these 2 exist, and here they are.
They do exist, and here they are. Exactly. So
always a pleasure, my brother. Nice talk.
Man.
It didn't get crazy. I was worried that I might lose my shit over it because
no, you held yourself very well, sir.
Well, I try. Like the problem is that we statesmen of the hobby, we have egos too. You know what I mean? And I have to remember to step back every once in a while and say, hey, I'm just a guy that collects wrestling cards, so maybe I should keep a lot of this shit to myself. But you've been kind enough to invite me to sit with you once a month, and I'm sort of speaking from the heart. But it's important to me that what we give is real. Keeping it real. And accurate, and feeling good about this. And there was a lot of times this month where didn't feel so great about the hobby. A lot of times where I felt I was back in high school with all the tweets that were coming in and people getting upset.
I'm over in the UK, and I'm getting a text message from you going like, "Hey, did you see what's going on Twitter lately?"
It's like when you're driving and there's a car crash, you have to rubberneck and see what's going on.
Yeah, of course.
And then the next day, oh fuck, they're still going at it.
That's right.
And this kind of thing. And
this pile-up is getting bigger.
It's none of my business to get in the middle of anything, and I don't want to offend anybody, but that's a great hobby, and
we talk offline, and we kind of, again, we share our opinions of, and we talk real when we talk offline, but we have to keep that face up front, listen, people looking to us for information and accurate information for both.
We just want to be right, and we want people to enjoy what we're having to say, so that it's not these guys again, maybe not.
But that's it, man. I can't wait to get back to next month and see how this whole Prizm thing plays out.
We're getting closer to the National.
Close to the National, man. We'll have more information.
Pretty soon, no more of this,
Yep. But it'll be in person for the first time ever.
Maybe I'll say something and you won't like it, and maybe I'll make some prediction about something you work too much.
That's right. I'll be like, oh God, I gotta go share a room with this guy.
Have a great month, everybody. We'll see you in 30 or 40 days.
You got it, guys. And with that, man, I say we're out.